All right. I see folks are starting to log in and join us. So hello and welcome everyone. We hope that you're looking forward to today's session as much as we are. We're live just a couple of minutes early to give folks a chance to settle in. And as we do, we would love to invite you to join us on camera. We'd love to see some more of the faces behind the names of everyone on this call with us. So if you'd like, go ahead and you'll see a raise hand icon on your screen. Click that icon and our team will give you access to the camera so that you can join us here. All right, I see folks raising your hands. So we're looking forward to seeing you. Give us just a moment and our team will give you access. As you log in too, go ahead and open up your chat box and I invite you to say hello and introduce yourself. Maybe tell us which part of the world you're dialing in from. The LEAD community is very global and diverse, and we would love to see which parts of the world are represented on this call as well. Awesome. Well, we have folks, of course, from the Bay Area next to Stanford here, but I also see folks from all different parts of the US and also around the world. We have New Jersey, Florida here. We also have folks from Pakistan and Chile, Argentina, Turkey, Egypt, Greece, Arkansas, Seattle, Canada, welcome. Folks from Brazil, Italy, DC, from Howard University, welcome. Folks in Mexico, Toronto.
Africa. I would tell the folks from Canada, welcome. I understand, according from our president, that you may become our 51st state. So.
All different parts of the world, welcome. And again, for the folks that just joined us, it's great to have you here. If you'd like to join us on camera, we'd love to see more of your faces. Go ahead and click that raise hand icon that you see on your screen there, and our team will give you access to the camera. And as you log in, also, I encourage you to open up your chat box. There's just such incredible representation from all over the world on today's call. And we are excited to engage with all of you. So thank you for joining us. I know it's all different times of the day for everyone, and we're glad to have you here with us. But with that, I want to make sure we can make the most of the time that we have here together today. So let's go ahead and get started. And first, I just want to extend a very warm welcome to each of you. My name is Marina, Director of the LEAD program, and on behalf of our entire team at the Stanford Graduate School of Business, we're so delighted to have you joining us today to get a taste of LEAD through this webinar featuring one of the very popular courses offered in the program called Building Power to Lead. Now, before we turn our focus onto the course, I just want to take a few minutes and give you a bit of context into the LEAD program and its relation to the session and the discussion today. Now, Stanford LEAD is the business school's flagship online program, and for nearly 10 years now, it's proven to provide such a rich and transformative learning experience that's truly reflective of the very best of Stanford GSB. The program is rooted in the academic rigor and the high-touch values of the school, with courses that are taught by some of our most senior tenured faculty, like Professor Pfeffer, who teaches the Building Power to Lead course, who are at the top of their fields worldwide. They teach across our MBA and our executive programs, and they teach their courses using a very unique learning model that ensures you're mastering what you learn through hands-on assignments that you'll apply immediately to the real world. So you'll see the results right away as you progress through the coursework. And in each of your courses, you'll also receive very personalized, very high-touch support from our course facilitators. Now, course facilitators are sort of like the sweet spot between a teaching assistant and an executive coach. They'll follow your individual progress through each of your courses and offer customized, personalized feedback and coaching along the way, just to really help you stretch and get the most out of the program. Now, in addition to learning from the course facilitators, a core part of your learning experience in LEAD will be through engagements with your peers as well. Now, there are about 6,000 individuals who have enrolled in the program over the last 10 years, coming from a very diverse set of personal as well as professional backgrounds. And although it's an online program, the learning environment in LEAD is very social, it's very connective. So you'll be engaging with fellow leaders from all around the world, like folks we have on this call today at different points in their careers across professional functions and industries. And this really gives you a rich opportunity to learn from one another and deepen and also expand your perspective on the topics that are being covered. And of course, we know that you're busy. All of this is done in a very flexible online format. So we certainly recognize you lead full lives. You have lots of personal commitments, professional commitments, and the program was conceived specifically with this in mind, with just the right balance of rigor and flexibility to make it work with your day-to-day demands. Now, the program runs over a period of 1 year. It's part-time, it's fully online. And traditionally, participants invest about 5 to 10 hours per week to complete the 8 courses required to earn the professional certificate from Stanford GSB. Although I will note there are some options for you to reduce your course load, extend your enrollment over a longer period of time if that works better with your schedule. And the folks who invest in this program come back to share such inspirational stories of how they've used it to really upskill, push their careers to the next level, and really elevate their impact. And we're so delighted to have a few ambassadors who have volunteered their time to share about their own program experience and outcomes with all of you a bit later in today's session as well. And as you'll hear, the program delivers incredibly strong results, really helping individuals grow and transform, both on a professional as well as on a personal level. So today, we're looking forward to sharing just a small taste of the LEAD learning experience with all of you through this webinar featuring the Building Power to Lead course. This course is taught by Stanford GSB professor, the one and only Jeffrey Pfeffer. And in LEAD, he's also supported by a team of course facilitators. And we're thrilled to have Monica Szuzowska-Kruk here from that team to support your learning in this session as well. So Jeff and Monica, thank you so much for your time. I'll turn it over to you to kick things off.
There you go. So I'm going to talk very, very briefly about one module in the Building Power to Lead course and give you a little bit of an overview of what the course covers. It's based upon books I've written on power. I've written 4 or 5, depending upon how you count the books on power. I teach a power class for our MBA students, which is quite popular and has a waiting list. And I teach this course in the LEAD program, which has become quite popular, mostly because, as you're soon going to learn from our ambassadors, because it has an enormous impact immediately on people and their careers and their career success. Next slide. So my most recent book on power is called 7 Rules of Power, Surprising but True Advice on How to Get Things Done and Advance Your Career. This is no longer the book cover. The cover is now in red because the book is now available in paperback to make it accessible to a wider audience. And apparently, according to my publisher, to cut the cost of producing it. So it's no longer available in hardback. If you're a hardback copy, it's like a collector's item, but the book is in fact available. One of the things that I'm proudest about the book is that we cover a variety of people in terms of their nationalities, in terms of their gender, in terms of all kinds of things. So we try to bring in examples from literally people from all over the world, many of whom were prior students in this class. Next slide. I believe, power, of course, is, according to Elizabeth Cantor of Harvard Business School, sometimes seen as a dirty word or whatever. I believe if power is to be used for good, more good people need to have power, which implies not opting out, but instead mastering the knowledge and skills that bring power. Organizational change, getting things done, requires power. Organizations are interdependent systems in which what you are able to do depends upon your ability to influence others, to collaborate and cooperate in ways that permit you to get things done. So power is not a dirty word. It is actually the secret to success. Next slide. And we'll go briefly through the 7 rules of power. I'm not going to talk about any of them except networking in any detail because otherwise it would take too long. The first rule, I believe, is the most important, which is get out of your own way. We are often our own biggest barrier to our career success and having power. The second rule is break the rules. Malcolm Gladwell wrote a fabulous article in the New Yorker magazine, How David Beats Goliath. David, of course, defeated Goliath in the Bible by breaking the rules. Rule 4 is act and speak in a rule 3, pardon me, is to act and speak in a powerful fashion, because how you show up affects how other people react to you. Body language, voice are all important. Rule 4 is to build a powerful personal brand. Branding is not just something for products. Branding is something that you need to do effectively as well. I had a session on branding last week with my on-campus class. It's just extraordinary to me to see what people have been able to do. If obviously you want to perform well, but you also want the world to understand what you stand for and what your performance level is. So branding is fantastic. Rule number 5 is to network relentlessly, which we're going to talk about in more detail in a little second. Rule 6 is use your power once you have it. Rule 7 is that once in power, how you got it will be forgiven and forgotten. I think Rule 6 and Rule 7 illustrated perfectly by the recently inaugurated President of the United States, who was the 45th president and the 47th president, the famous Donald Trump. And I will give you a bonus rule, which I think the class also emphasizes, which is to build and develop the personal qualities that produce power. So one of the things, if this class and when this class is successful, is that you will in fact be transformed, including building skills and qualities that you did not think you had. This is, again, we're not trying to change your personality. What we're trying to do is give you a set of behaviors that will make you much more effective. Next slide. And one of the behaviors that will make you more effective is to network relentlessly. Most people spend insufficient time on social relationships. In many, if not most jobs, your task is to know as many people as possible. Successful people, according to one study that I read, spend 8 to 10 hours per week on building connections. That is an hour or 2 per day. If leadership entails getting things done through others, the more others you know, the more you'll be able to get done. I can give you a couple of examples. I would refer you to the book by Keith Ferrazzi, a very successful marketing consultant, former partner at Deloitte. He wrote a book called Never Eat Alone, which is, I think, a motto that I have taken seriously. So I tried to never eat alone. And John Levy, who runs this organization called Influencers, which was written about in the New York Times many years ago, has written a book called You're Invited, The Art and Science of Cultivating Influence. So if you're interested in networking, I highly recommend, in addition to 7 Rules of Power, considering looking at Keith Ferrazzi's book, Never Eat Alone, or John Levy's book, You're Invited, The Art and Science of Cultivating Influence. Both of these books, particularly John's book, have extraordinarily practical ideas about how to put on events that will be curated and attract all kinds of interesting people to them. So I highly recommend doing this and to spend sufficient time doing networking. Next slide. The next thing I will tell you about networking is that there are 3 principles of networking that are possibly non-intuitive. Most of us spend most of our time with people that we know and interact with frequently. So we spend time with our friends and family outside of work, and at work we tend to spend the most time with our close colleagues and with people that we work with closely. The most important and useful ties in our lives are, however, the weak ties. The people to whom we see only occasionally, the people to whom we are only weakly tied. And that is because the people who we know the best know the same people and the same things that we do. And the weak ties are the ties that can provide you non-redundant, new information and new contacts. I am actually trying to practice what I teach. This afternoon, I'm going to some venture capital meeting in San Francisco where companies are going to be pitching, and it's been organized by a UK-based venture capital organization. And I'm going not because I have so much money to invest, because I'm in the middle of a house remodel and I have no money, but because these are people that I will not know, and I will get to meet new people. And so I'm trying to network relentlessly, even for myself at this stage of the career. And there are two other principles. When you create a social network, you want to be central so that you control the flow of information, and so that many things and communications go through you, and that gives you more knowledge about what is happening. And finally, the third principle is to occupy brokerage positions, to fill structural holes, to connect groups or individuals who could benefit from knowing each other. Many people see networking as dirty or slimy or whatever. Networking is, in fact, at its best, an act of generosity, where you find one person, for instance, Monica, my fabulous course facilitator, who will soon be on the call with us, and connect Monica with other people who Monica could be helpful to, or they could be helpful to her. So networking is about connecting groups or individuals who could be helpful to each other. What does a real estate broker do? They connect buyers and sellers. What does a venture capitalist do? A venture capitalist connects money from people with money to invest, and they connect them with people with business ideas. That's what an investment banker does as well, connect buyers and sellers of securities or businesses. So to the extent that you are able to occupy this position in the intermediary, entrepreneur comes from the French word actually that means to stand between. You, in fact, will create value for other people, but you will also be able to create value, that you will be able to capture for yourself. So these are some of the principles of networking that we teach and go through in the class. And with that, next slide, and we'll move on. All right. One of us, either Marina or I will call them. We have three fantastic people who have taken this class who are going to spend a tiny bit of time talking to you about their experience. I think we will start with Francesca.
Yes. Good morning, afternoon, evening, everybody. Hello, Professor. It's an honor, to be honest, to be in this kind of calls, because really this course was transformative, and it was really, really one of the most powerful that I've taken in LEAD. A little bit about myself. Francesca Messina, as you may notice from the name and surname, I have the most Italian name and surname. So yes, I am Italian. However, today I live in New York, and I work in New York for Rabobank, which is a Dutch bank with international footprint. And I did not used to live in New York when I took LEAD first, because my background is I'm Italian. Then I moved to Germany. Then I moved to London. Then I moved to the Netherlands, where I started to work in Rabobank for 4 to 5 years. And I was being told I was very smart by a number of stakeholders that I was working in various positions that I held in the bank. I also did 1 year at the United Nations Global Compact. I was team lead for a project in food loss. But I looked back yesterday when preparing this presentation at my diary, at my journal, before taking this class. And one of the words that came up more often is I was frustrated before taking the power class, because I was keeping on being told, you're so smart, you're so smart. And indeed, I went to Stanford at 28, like great, massive success, yet I was so frustrated because I was not getting the promotion that I deserved. I was not getting the role that I wanted. And people that had less knowledge and were less deserving of getting the roles were getting them, and I was not, right? So I went into the power class, and with the coach that I had was Deepti Power. So I didn't have Monica, but massive congrats to you, Monica. You have an aura around you of people that talk incredibly nice about you. But with Deepti and Professor Pfeffer, it was so transformative. And I was thinking back of a metaphor that I could use to describe how it feels. It's like taking an ice bucket challenge, because it was really just receiving some slap in the face from the course facilitators, and they were telling me like, yep, you're doing this to yourself. You're getting in your own way, in things that I had not thought of before. I was not connecting to the relevant stakeholders that I needed to, so I started to network. It took me a little bit. It took me a few weeks to actually realize what I needed to do. But with the right coaching from Deepti, I really managed to start to do it. So I started to network and create really meaningful connections within the bank and outside of the bank. So I actually networked outside in the field of finance and sustainability. And well, within a few weeks, I moved some pieces. So I created a sponsor for myself, because I used to work in the finance department that connects finance and sustainability. And he said to me at the end of the first call that we had, would you like to come to New York for a short period? And I was like, yes, please. I would be terribly interested in that. So a few months later, I'm in New York. I start to engage with all the relevant stakeholders. And by the end of the period that I was here in New York for only 3 months, I got offered a position here. I built my own brand. I was not scared anymore to be very powerful in my messages. I have a very strong character. I'm being told today that I am quite intimidating and ruthless. 2 years ago, I would have taken it as a sort of insult, and I would have said like, oh my God, maybe I need to be a little bit less. I'm so sorry about that. And now I'm like, no, this is fantastic. Yes, I am ruthless. Yes, I am intimidating, and you better listen to me, because usually I'm right. And so, yeah, last year in July, I moved permanently to New York. I'm now a vice president for sustainability in the business. And I never looked back. This is really revolutionary, and it is really a nice bucket challenge, but it's fantastic.
Thank you for that. And I particularly like the fact that you talked about networking as part of one of the things that you've learned and did as part of the class. And now I will call on—
I have a question, please.
And now I will call on my friend Olu to talk about your experience in the class.
Thank you. Thank you. This feels very surreal for me. It's just a couple of months ago, I was here in Stanford LEAD program. I talked to myself and I said, another Wednesday, right? So I would like to thank Professor Pfeffer and the whole LEAD team, and of course, my course fellow speakers as well. So I've always joked that I hold the record for the longest name. So I hope I still do have that longest name today on the call. So I am Oluwadamilola Olakunle Ajayi. But for simplicity and to make your life easier today, you can call me Dami. So I serve as the director for Lagos State government in Nigeria. And I work tirelessly to ensure energy is available, affordable, and sustainable for our citizens. But 3 years ago, I faced an experience that deeply, deeply broke me. And this will be the first time I'll be speaking to over 2,000 people about it. I think I've spoken to like 1 or 2 people about it because I was never ready to speak on it, actually. So I think today will be that day. So essentially, I was bedridden for about 8 months, right? And this 2 years ago, with some doctors saying I might not walk again, some says I can walk again. So you can imagine that period for me was me grappling with immense pain. I had bitterness, I was heartbroken. I also realized that there were some people I counted on that they were nowhere to be found. So it led me to this state of depression, right? So many months after that, I began my rehabilitation, started walking again. However, my depression compounded. I felt stagnant in my career. That's when I said, you know, I needed to change something, right? And I joined the LEAD program, and which turned out to be one of my best decisions ever. Every course was transformative, but the power to lead by Professor Pfeffer truly, truly, truly changed my life, I tell you. It allowed me to essentially let go of the pain, channel my frustration, and I realized that my career challenges were not rooted in my role, actually. It was how I approached my role that I needed to be changed. And knowing that I worked in a very highly political environment, I had to I've achieved my position before that time. It was hard work, yes, but I would say a bit of grace, right? As some people say, luck. But I was never intentional about anything I was doing. So after the course, I became a lot more deliberate, and I can proudly say at least 95% of my time, I consistently achieved the goals I set. So the clarity led me to my power project, right? And my power project was starting a podcast. Now that sounds pretty basic. Everyone starts a podcast, right? But for someone that was a bit reserved and private, I don't like to let people know who I am really. Just do my work and be hardworking and go. That was a huge leap for me. But I took on the challenge, right? And here are some of the things I accomplished, right? The first was I partnered with a major brand, which is the biggest conference organizer in my industry, who remains on board till today. Keeping them, it was actually tougher than getting them on board, actually. And the Power course really helped me keep them. I produced more than 6 episodes, and I've gained sponsorship offers, of which we are deliberating at the moment, for which of them we'll go through. I've also elevated my brand. Third, the podcast has opened doors to priceless relationships for me in the industry and speaking opportunities. I can count about 2 to 3 speaking opportunities that were created deliberately after doing the Power course. I'm now recognized as subject matter expert, with colleagues, industry experts asking me for my own opinion. I was like, the last time they asked me, I was like, okay, was this the same dummy of the past? And my career has reached new heights. I'm not actively seeking for jobs, but I get recruiters, organizations constantly approaching me. And this is not a coincidence for it to happen straight after the Power course. But what did I really learn? I learned, as a professor has mentioned, I learned to play the game. Like, I understood that without participating, I'm leaving things to fate, right? So I was done with that. Networking became something I did unconsciously. I remember one of the modules in module 3 when we spoke about, I think it was Sadiq, how you become an expert in your field and become known in that. I kind of took that on board as well. I enjoyed my elevator pitch. I use it all the time in different versions. I have embraced strategic disruptions. I recall a time where I just sat on different people's seats intentionally in a management meeting just to raise the atmosphere and change the atmosphere, which worked to my advantage. I've turned adversaries into allies, which was really critical because I needed to look inward and change the way I approached everyone. And last but not the least, most importantly, the Power to Lead helped me silently, but very powerfully overcome the depression that redefine my purpose. So if I could give anyone and leave anyone with a piece of advice, to be honest, it's, as it was mentioned earlier on, get out of your own way. Be open, immerse yourself in the whole process. Go beyond what was taught, which was what I did. I experimented boldly. I hope no one on my office is on this call because they were my guinea pigs and I love you all. And I realized that I discovered what worked for my personality and I leveraged it. And I think we can all do incredible things. So thank you. Thank you, Professor. Thank you all.
Yes, thank you, Dami, for talking about that and for talking about how you started the podcast. And basically, as you listen to Dami describe his transformation, he decided the word that came out is intentionality and strategic, that you need to be more strategic about your careers than many of you are, as opposed to just hoping that your good work will somehow lead to something, to be strategic about it. And also, Dami has done such a fabulous job of building his brand, including, by the way, by agreeing to be on this call today. I think it's really important, so that the hard work coupled with the brand building creates amazing career transformations. And last but not least, we're going to hear from Zane Teeters. Zane, take it away.
Thank you, Professor Pfeffer. And I appreciate the opportunity to speak with everyone today. I graduated from LEAD in the summer of last year, and I am currently the Senior Director at Microsoft, where I lead the strategic technical business development within our worldwide public sector. And, my career was anything but linear. I started off in the military as an intelligence analyst here in the US. I worked for a startup organization I ran my own business and eventually landed at Microsoft along the way. And similarly to some of the co-panelists here, when I joined the Building Power to Lead course, I was at a crossroads in my career. At the time, I was feeling underutilized and undervalued in my role. I was very passionate about the work that I was doing, putting in long hours. But at the time, I was honestly considering leaving Microsoft because of that. When I saw the opportunity to take this course, I realize now that it didn't just change my trajectory. It really did transform how I think about power, how I think about leadership, and my own potential. And so when it came to my power goal, I decided I was going to take a swing at something that felt like an impossible target, which was securing a promotion from director to senior director. It was stepping into a much larger management role, and then doing all of this in Microsoft during a time of mass layoffs and organizational upheaval. My mentors cautioned my approach. They felt I was being far too ambitious. And was it risky? Perhaps, maybe a bit. But I committed, I trusted the process, and I decided to just experiment boldly as if I had nothing to lose. And so my project was about redefining how Microsoft partners with the US defense industry. I pitched a new strategy for an operational model that put engineering in the role of that relationship opposed to our sales organization. And I pitched this directly to several of our executive leaders within Microsoft, bypassing all the traditional channels that you should follow. So that move was met with significant resistance. I broke several rules along the way, but at the end of the day, it worked. The result was that I gained the opportunity to manage the largest defense partnership Microsoft had at the time. And this wasn't just a career win for me. This set a new precedent for how Microsoft was going to engage these partnerships as a company. Not only that, but I strengthened my relationships with key leaders, with my team. Ultimately, I earned the promotion, and I've shifted my remit from just a US defense-based focus to our entire global sector industry. So thinking all of that was too good to be true, I had already gained the momentum before the course. I wasn't going to trust a singular data point. I applied these same strategies to some of my volunteer efforts here locally. And I ended up being nominated for a board position at a local technology organization. So I can tell you that the tactics absolutely work. And those are just some examples that I have to share with you today. But what did I learn? I think is the key thing here. And I realized that I had been waiting for permission to lead. It helped me identify that I already had the power to act. And for me, that my biggest barrier to growth were actually self-imposed. And then second was that the bold actions have unexpected and positive ripple effects. So the risk wasn't in failing, the risk was actually in not trying. And then finally, power isn't negative and it's not about control. Rather, as Professor Pfeffer said in his intro, it's about influence, trust, and then it's creating momentum for yourself. So my advice for anyone who is thinking about taking this course is treat it like a sandbox. This is your chance to test some bold strategies without fear or failure while having a coach. And second would be lean into that coaching. For me, I worked with Violetta, and that was a game changer for me. I had a personal career coach for the duration of the course that gave me clarity and confidence to accomplish everything that I tried to during the course. And then lastly, it would be don't wait for the opportunities to come to you. You've got to go out and create them. Even if it feels uncomfortable, and trust me, it will absolutely feel uncomfortable. Step into that discomfort because that's where the growth happens. And honestly, that's where all of the goodness starts to take shape. So for this course, it truly did give me the tools and mindset that ended up changing my career. I think it can do the same for you. And I'm looking forward to the Q&A at the end of the session. Thank you.
I want to thank again the three ambassadors for telling such amazing and compelling stories. Zane, I really love the idea of being bold. I mean, there is in finance, they will tell you there is no return without taking some risk. I think that's true in careers as well. And as you listen to the three stories, what you hear are people who are willing, to kind of get out of their comfort zone, to do things that are different than what they had done before, and therefore to get very, very different results. Congratulations to all three of you, and thank you for sharing your stories. And with this, I believe we're now going to go to my currently favorite, because she's on the call. The favorite is always the person who's on the call. My favorite course facilitator, Monica, who I've worked with almost since the very beginning. Monica, I believe, was actually a student in this class and went on to become a very, very fabulously effective course facilitator. And she's going to give you a little bit more detail about what this module feels like, the networking module, as an example of what it is like to be as part of the LEAD program. Monica, take it away.
Thank you very much, Professor. First of all, you are spoiling us rotten, as usual. Secondly, I am almost like a poster child for the course because it changed trajectory of my life. And without further ado, before I go there, sincere congratulations to all our wonderful ambassadors. This is truly heartwarming. So Francesca, Oluvadamilola, yay, I made it, and Zane for sharing your stories. It's also heartwarming to see my former and current students on the call. So hello, guys. And without further ado, this is what you see at the moment, hopefully, at your screens, is actually a snapshot of our internal system where we access all the materials related to the course. What I'm showing you on the left-hand side is actually the structure of the entirety of the course. And you will see it contains of 8 modules. They are released on a weekly basis with a new set of materials for you to discover. We will have a look in more depth, as Professor mentioned, in building efficient and effective social networks. So in terms of the structure of the module, I wanted to highlight several elements for your information, just to give you a little flavor how it looks like real life. So first and foremost, you will see videos from Professor sharing different concepts and different important points from the course materials. Secondly, as one of the activities, you also have a chance to interact live with your assigned course facilitator, and actually our wonderful ambassadors mentioned some of my fabulous colleagues. We are conducting so-called Power Hour, which is a group setting where we discuss with our assigned participants different strategies related to power. But you are also given a chance to have 2 coaching calls with us where we one-on-one brainstorm, strategize, plan how to make the most of this course to push your career forward. We also have snippets from real life related to, for example, executive recruiters. In this specific module, we are having quick peek, how to make the most of that sort of relationship, how to leverage that to grow in terms of your networking power. We have a video which has been recorded, but there is also a transcript for you to follow. Furthermore, fabulous books already mentioned. I am a huge fan, and it seems that I have a collectible here, and you see how readily used it is with various elements highlighted. So those resources are also available to you, and they contain a lot of inspirational ideas, strategies, suggestions, additional case studies to digest, but also to leverage as we go through the course. I mentioned cases, and actually the course also gives us a chance to see the heroes of those courses live in the videos, but also read inspiring stories that those people kind of went through and applied power strategies, made their best out of it, similarly as our fabulous ambassadors presented it. Then there is a D-Day, meaning the moment where you need to submit your reflection. And this is an important moment because this is one of the touch points which, again, you have with your course facilitator. You caught me today red-handed, guys, because Wednesdays are the D-Days when the assignments are due. And before joining our session today, I was my elbows deep in providing feedback for my participants. The important element is that it is an ongoing dialogue. We work through a Google-based doc where we actually provide both some ad hoc comments, but also more kind of elaborate perspective. And we toss ideas back and forth. We report failures and iterate how to go from there. We report successes. So this one is done on a regular basis. It's tailor-made. It's for you. There is also a summary for you to take away, so the key concepts from the given module, so that you have a refresher when you finish the course. But element which is literally, you cannot, how to put it, overvalue it, the peer coaching and also the power of the community that goes with LEAD. So starting from the ability to, have an in-touch interaction with professor, because there are several live sessions with professor as well, through collaborating with your elite executive coaches to guide you through the course concepts, through working with your peer coach, through your kind of pod, meaning all the participants who are working with the given course facilitator, up to the whole community, which is extremely supportive and warm. That was a super, super quick overview, just to give you a little bit of a flavor of how the work looks on a regular basis.
Oops, okay, I think now we should probably move. I see lots of questions appearing in the chat, but unfortunately they come and go much too fast for me to answer them all. So this would be a great moment, I think, for Monica and I. Monica will do more of the work than me because she's much smarter about this than me, to answer some of the questions that people have put in the chat. And maybe, Marina, you can draw some of the questions out of the chat, or you can call on people. But there were a lot of questions, or there were at least some questions I saw flashing into the chat. Do you want to pull some of them out so that we can answer them?
Yeah, absolutely. And I see that there are also folks that are raising their hands when they have questions. We invite you to go ahead and type your questions into the chat that you have for Professor Pfeffer, for Monica, for our ambassadors, and we'll get to as many of them as we can there today. All right. So as a first question, Professor Pfeffer, can you speak a bit to hesitations that folks have around networking? A lot of the ambassadors mentioned sort of get out of your own way. What are some strategies, mindset shifts that folks can use to get out of their own way related to that topic?
So it's a great question. You know, if I said to you, you need to become a better tennis player, you would practice playing tennis under the guidance of a coach. If you're going to get better at networking, the only way to do it is to actually try it. And so one of the things that this class does, with the encouragement of your executive coaches like Monica and her 13 or 14 other colleagues, depending upon how many students we have in the class, is the coaches are going to encourage you to do things that you would otherwise be uncomfortable doing. But this is, you know, as I sometimes say, you weren't born walking, talking, or using the toilet. These are all things that you learn to do over time by doing them. And so one of the things that we do in the networking module is have you identify 10 people that if you knew them or were connected to them, they could make a big difference in your life and in your career. And then you're encouraged to figure out, okay, these are 10 people I've identified that could be important to me. How am I going to meet them? How am I going to reach out to them? And then we encourage you to actually do it. And so we have a, if you will, and I think Monica described this perfectly, we have a plan, do, and reflect kind of process that's going on. Here's some learning, here's a concept. What do you plan to do with it? Then you go out and do it. You're encouraged to do it. And then what did you learn? What is your reflection? So I think that is how you become better at anything, including, by the way, networking.
I would add just one element to it, Jeff, because you mentioned something very important when you were sharing the content of the module. You mentioned that we are not changing anybody's character or anybody's persona. And I also saw in the chat kind of flashing through a question, what about introverts? What they are supposed to do in a situation of networking? And let me put it like that. I worked with multiple participants who describe themselves as introverts. And what they told me is, Monica, don't force us to do that. Just have mercy. We are not able to kind of go over ourselves on that one. And I said, breathe, let's figure out the strategies which fit your specific style, your specific characteristics. For example, build on relationships that you already have, meaning you don't have to do cold calling. Start from low-hanging fruits, maybe your friends, maybe lead peers, maybe former colleagues from work, maybe former university friends. So that was first step. First, number two, use the channels that you prefer. Maybe not all of us are, as myself, extroverts and beyond horizon and accelerating. Some of us prefer, for example, written word, and it is absolutely fine. You can network equally successfully, for example, through internal chats, through LinkedIn, through email. And point number three, start kind of, how to put it, build on the strategies that you already know, that you tried, that you feel comfortable with, and then add the elements which are less comfortable. Almost like dip your toes into the water and then practice some more. But as Jeff mentioned, key element of the course is iteration and practice. I mean, we can theorize ourselves to death, but if you do not try the strategies that we teach, we have no way of knowing whether they will work for your specific context.
Yeah. Do we have more questions? We have like thousands of questions coming up.
Lots of questions coming through. So I'll share another one with you. Ben asked about the relationship between power and humility, power and mutuality, power and kindness. Can you speak a bit about that?
So this is a class called Building Power, and it is a class about building power. It is not necessarily a class about building happiness or many other things. So it is a class that is focused on, in fact, building power. Power comes with trade-offs. There is a session, there's a chapter in the book, Power, Why Some People Have It and Others Don't, that talks about the price of power. There is in fact a price for having power. On the other hand, power permits you to get things done. I think, one of the premises, I think, of my teaching, and certainly the teaching in this class, is that most of us are too humble. There are some people who aren't. We've just elected one of them president. Maybe there's a message there. But many people, I think, do not network enough. They're too humble. They don't take enough credit for the work that they do. They have been taught or socialized, to keep their head down. There's all these aphorisms, the tall poppy syndrome in Australia, or the nail that stands up gets hammered down. But if you actually look at the world and look at the social science research, which is what we cover in this class, you will find that many of these things are not very useful for you. I tell you, so part of what this class is to get you beyond some of the beliefs that you may have heard elsewhere by giving you a lot of social science evidence. And part of the class is to get you to do things that you would not otherwise do. Because if you could do them, and if you know everything that's already in the class and you're doing already everything that's in the class, you actually don't need to take the class. So we are really trying to get you into the optimal level of, I would say, discomfort. By the way, Marina, I did see a question that flashed by that asked, are there scholarships to take this class? By the way, I don't know the answer to that, so Marina can talk to you about that.
So while the program doesn't offer scholarships, we do have lots of folks that get reimbursement and funding support from their organizations. Lots of companies offer professional development funds that you're able to use to help support your enrollment in the program. So I definitely encourage you to check that out, see if it's available to you through your company. And we also have various ways for you to break up your payments, pay over time. For those of you that will be using funds through your companies, that gives you a nice opportunity to really maximize, use a couple of calendar years worth of reimbursement. And then those that are paying out of pocket gives you a bit more flexibility to financially plan to support your enrollment in the program too. So if you have questions about that, feel free to reach out to our team. Just email leadadmissions@stanford.edu, and we can talk to you a little bit more about the options available and also how you might explore what your company offers or pitch to your company if they don't offer it already for them to support your enrollment in this program.
And I saw a question flash through the chat about helping Asian Americans or Asian women who are often at times a little reticent to do some of the things we're talking about. I will tell you that the Pfeffer on Power podcast has an episode with Deborah Liu, who is a very senior leader in Facebook, now called Meta, and is now the CEO of Ancestry.com. And we have examples in both 7 Rules of Power and in the book Power, Why Some People Have It and Others Don't, of people from literally all over the world and all kinds of nationalities. So I would encourage you, to read the book and see those examples. If we have more questions, Marina.
We do have more questions. There was a question from Jen that was interesting in the chat, and she said, networking gets you in the room, but then how would one use the LEAD program in conversation to help them really shine in those networking conversations?
Monica, do you want to answer that?
So in terms of senior forks, Marina, I missed that part.
No problem. So the question is about networking, right? We can network, will be invited into the room. Once you're in the room, how do you use your learnings from LEAD to really shine?
That's a fabulous question. And the $1 million answer to it is strategize. Meaning the exercise that Jeff mentioned in the module, this is just a starting point, because it asks us not only to list 10 people that we want to get in touch with in the in the process of studying in the course, but there is also a task to be more specific. Meaning to almost like have your micro strategy, how you are going specifically to reach out to this person. So what sort of excuse you are going to use, how you are going to execute it, what sort of message you are going to write. And actually, when I work with my participants, I encourage them to be as specific as possible, plus to answer $1 million question, what's in it for them, meaning why this person should be interested in getting in touch with me. What elements can I bring to the table to make it interesting for my stakeholders? For example, can I offer them some help? Can I offer additional perspective? Can I support them in any other way? But also to answer a question other way around, what's in it for me? Because if you struggle with that specific question, it means that maybe, just maybe, that person should not be on your priority list. But in terms of getting in front of stakeholders, the key element is, again, to have a very clear strategy. What points you are going to bring to them, what elements you want to showcase, and also to answer yourself a question, what is my objective in terms of this specific interaction? What am I kind of trying to get from this relationship? Plus, what helps at times is to see the relationship not only transactional, meaning just one session that's going to happen and kind of go away, but also as a form of building a relationship, something with more solid foundations, which you can leverage in a function of time in various ways.
Yep. Thank you.
Thanks,
Mark. And I saw another question. There have been a bunch of questions that have been flashing by that have asked, I think, issues around live sessions. So the Power course, and I don't know if this is true for other courses, the Power course has 2 live sessions, one at towards the very beginning and one at the end, in which people are asked to share their learning experiences throughout the course. And we also have 2 question and answer sessions, which are quite unstructured, in which I and the course facilitators show up and take any questions that are available. So we have, over the course of our 8 weeks together, 4 live sessions, 2 Q&A, and 2 sessions that are called live sessions. Marina, more questions?
Great. Yes, more questions. So we had one where we would love to hear from Professor Pfeffer, Monica, or the ambassadors, and questions came from Kathy and Todd around your comments of taking risks and breaking rules internally, breaking some of the norms that existed to get to where you are today. And the questions are, how did you manage the repercussions of that? Or what should one expect in terms of managing those repercussions? And so this is open for anyone that would like to chime in.
So I would say that there are fewer repercussions than you expect, because in fact you are evaluated mostly by your ability to get things done, not by your ability to conform to what everybody expects you to do. Dami, did you want to say something?
Yes. So I think it's just one word really for me. And you made this known on the module and the course, is it's easier to ask for forgiveness than permission, right? So, I just take it that way, and it's like, hey, I'm sorry, but it's easier that way. But you don't want to also all the time break it and not perform. That's just the balance you have to have. But it's easier to ask for forgiveness than permission.
Yeah, and I'd agree with that, Dami. And I think another thing, I saw a question in the chat come across as well. I mentioned breaking rules where I went directly to the executives, and there was some blowback for that from the executive staff members, from the other organization that ended up losing the lead role as a result of what I did. But what I'll say is, as soon as the executives committed or blessed, if you will, my strategy, that blowback stopped almost immediately. At that point, I had the sponsorship that I needed. And then as soon as I started getting results, even the folks that weren't in agreement started to defer to the path forward. So to Dami's point and to Professor Pfeffer's point, once you start demonstrating your ability to perform, people tend to follow you at that point and just maintain your respect throughout. And all is either forgotten or forgiven at that point.
Similar experience to me, to be honest. In the past year, I've broken a lot of rules, and similar to Zane, I went directly to very senior stakeholders of the bank. I created first some support before doing that. So I didn't do it alone because alone I was not going anywhere. So I first created some support in the region, and then we went together to break some rules together. I did receive some heavy calls from people that were not happy about those conversations happening, but eventually I was right, they were wrong. So what are you gonna do? So it worked.
If I may chime in, can you guys hear me?
Yes, Arnold, we can hear you. Oh, it looks like you were muted. Arnold, why don't you go ahead and enter your comments in the chat? We'll continue to take it from there. Okay. And I do want to cover one other question that came up in the chat. This was shared across a few folks. Andrea and Nikita asked about it, and they were touching on the nuances that are related to building power for women leaders. Professor Pfeffer, you mentioned that this is covered in some of the Pfeffer on Power podcasts as well. Can you share a few strategies or takeaways for the women leaders in our audience here today?
Well, I think many of the examples in the books are female leaders. We have the Pfeffer on Power podcast, which has interviews with a lot of women leaders, including the famous Deborah Liu. Deborah Liu has written a book entitled, based upon the fact that I've asked her to come to my class so often that she decided to write a book on her own experience becoming the CEO of Ancestry.com and being a woman leader in technology, which has not always been welcoming to women leaders. And the title of her book is Take Back Your Power. And I think it really describes perfectly what she has done. And a lot of this, frankly, a lot of this is getting out of your own way by, I have a very dear friend who's listed by Time Magazine as one of the 100 most influential people in the world. She happens to be a doctor or breast cancer surgeon named Laura Esserman. And she came once to my class and I said, Laura, you don't act like a woman in the sense that, women aren't supposed to get angry, you get angry. Women aren't supposed to swear, you swear. Women aren't supposed to use the F word. I've heard you use the F word. And she said, she has a quote, which I've repeated verbatim in 7 Rules of Power. She says, I basically am not going to let people define for me what I am permitted or not permitted to do. I'm not going to, many people have tried, but they're not going to succeed. I'm going to be who I am and what I want to be. So a lot of what I believe the effect of this class is, and I think it's really illustrated in the 3 people who talked today, is getting people to be bolder, to take more chances, and to do things that will cause you to be, to be more effective. And so that's, I wish this class was about learning the social science behind power. We have lots of references in these books. We have lots of readings that I hope people will do. But a lot of the effect of this class is to get people to try things that they didn't think they could do, and it turns out that they can do them.
I'll just add to it that for those who want to deep dive into the topic, there is a fabulous article written by Professor Pfeffer, which actually debates how power travels through continents, timelines, genders, races, geographies. So you are more than welcome to Google it. It's available in Google Scholar. And just to prove Jeff's point, let me just mention that vast majority of power coaches are actually women. So there we are. We are a living proof.
And maybe let me say, it's not easy sometimes to be a woman. I work in banking, fully male-dominated environment. Very recently, I was told, Francesca, can you be nice through email? And I reread the email that I had just sent, and it was just facts, right? So, and I am a lovely person, but there was nothing wrong with my email. So I just ignored the email. Before the power course, I would have maybe doubted myself and thought like, maybe I should have been nicer and put it in a nicer way. I don't think you would ever say to a male, right? Can you please be nice? So yes, we are treated a little bit differently, but yeah, you gotta own your own truth and be your own powerful self. So yeah.
Thank you, Francesca, for that. And it looks like we're coming up close to time to wrap up this session with Professor Pfeffer before we move on to a Q&A with our ambassadors. And before we wrap up, Professor Pfeffer, do you have any closing thoughts you'd like to leave the audience with?
No, I'm just going to mention something, in Kate, because I've seen this come across the questions as well. This session has been recorded, and there is a lot of information about LEAD that you can reach out to Marina and her team, and they will provide you more information about LEAD if you want it. And Marina, how can people access this recording?
So we will send an email copy of the recording to everybody on this call, and then it will be posted to YouTube as well. So look out for an email from us over the next day or two with a copy of the recording. We'll have the chat transcript there as well for all of you to refer to too, because we know there was some great conversation happening there. And I just want to take this moment to thank Professor Pfeffer, Monica, Francesca, Demi, Zane for a very engaging and inspirational discussion. And to everybody who joined, we hope that this gave you just a small taste of the caliber of what you can achieve with the Stanford LEAD program. And we want to invite you to continue exploring the program and to go ahead and apply. So first up, we're going to have a live Q&A with the program ambassadors coming up in just a moment. So we hope you'll stick around for that. And as you continue to explore the program, go ahead and keep in mind that the next cohort is starting the program in March of this year. So you can apply now, and you have 2 weeks to complete your application by that February 5 deadline. If you have any questions about the program, payment options related to tuition, application process, or anything else that might come to mind, don't hesitate to reach out to our team at any point. You'll reach myself or one of the wonderful folks with LEAD team in front of our name on this call, and we're more than happy to help. And we do hope that we'll have the opportunity to learn a bit more about you and your goals for pursuing LEAD through the application process, and that we'll welcome you to LEAD and the Stanford Graduate School of Business community in March. So thank you again to everyone for participating in this session, Professor Pfeffer, Monica for leading the discussion. And at this point, we'll transition to a live Q&A with our panel of ambassadors. Again, we have Francesca, Demi, and Zane, who have kindly volunteered their time to be with us today. And while you heard them share a bit about their experience and outcomes from the Building Power to LEAD course just a moment ago, they've all completed the full 8-course-long Stanford LEAD program, and they're here to answer your questions about the program and experience and outcomes. Now, I know that many of you on this call, you're actively thinking about the next steps in your own professional development journey, and I hope that you'll find the discussion here today useful as you explore how LEAD is going to help you achieve your goals. Now, remember, our panelists were in your shoes not too long ago as they were considering enrolling in the program themselves. And I'm sure that there are things that you are curious about that they can best speak to as someone who's gone through it themselves. So if you have questions, open up your chat box, go ahead and enter them there. As we move through the discussion, we'll select as many as we can get to in the next half hour that we have together so that we can take those live. Now, again, I'm joined on this call by a few of my colleagues, and if you have any questions that are a bit more administrative in nature, feel free to add those in the chat as well. We'll respond to those in writing so that we can save the live discussion time for our panelists and their insights. So with that, we can go ahead and get started. Francesca, Zane, and Dami, thank you again for your time here. For the first question, there were a couple of people in the chat who are curious about what type of professional profile is right for the LEAD program. They're curious if this program is right for them. Can you share a bit about your perspective on the types of folks that you engaged with in the LEAD program and how you would think about, having gone through the program yourself, who this program would be most suitable for? And I'll open it up. Any of you are welcome to chime in.
Thanks, Marina. And I think it's a great question. And I think one of the benefits of the program is that there's a diverse set of folks that you're going to meet and that you're going to learn from throughout the program. What I've noticed is that there were varying levels from some mid-level to senior level individuals that were in the courses. But they were all looking to better themselves. They were all looking for kind of that next thing that was going to take them to the next level. So I think if you're someone who's looking for that self-growth, you're looking for, tools and techniques to help you get there, you're going to find that that is really all it takes to be successful in the program. And you're going to meet folks from all walks of life, from all over the world, that are in your same shoes.
Thank you, Zane. Francesca or Dami, is there anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, so one of the pros actually of being in LEAD was to connect with people that were not in banking, that were not in finance, right? So that is an easier networking that I can do also after LEAD. But during LEAD, I really connected with people at Google, Microsoft, and tech engineers, in the education system, professors, teaching assistants. The variety was really, really diverse. So what else? One was working at SpaceX. One other was working at super diverse. And what really helps you is indeed connecting with them, because things that you are stuck in with your own working environment, they bring you perspective that you would have never gotten otherwise. So it is one of the benefits actually that it's so diverse.
Yeah, just to add to that, right? I mean, I consider him a brother. Just if you look at our complexions are totally different. He's from Saudi Arabia, and we're so tight now because of the LEAD program. Zane on the call right now. I speak to Zane, and we're so tight as well. So it becomes a family. To be honest, I was very skeptical at the beginning for school, and I was like, how would I survive and everything? The support from everyone, from various backgrounds, help you. So as Zane and Francesca said, is diverse, and it's diversely engaging as well.
Thank you all for sharing your perspectives on that. There are also a couple of people in the chat who are curious about sort of the program format and the connectivity between participants. Dami, you just touched on this in terms of your relationships with folks. The program is delivered fully online, but as we talked about a bit earlier in the session, there are lots of opportunities for you to connect with others. This is going to be both online as well as in person. And I'm wondering if the ambassadors can share from your experience what your experience has been connecting with your peers in the program, both in person and online.
When I started the course, the first two courses are critical analytical thinking and finance, and I got the privilege to meet really smart but also fun people. One was together with me in the Netherlands, although he's Greek, I'm Italian, we were both living in the Netherlands. One was from New York, living here, where I am now, and now we're friends and we hang out together a lot. And others were in London, and others in South Africa. And the level of engagement that you get, especially at the beginning of the course, because you go through so much studying and struggles together, that really bonds you. it really connects you on a deeper level that I would say for me simply worked. And now indeed we're just friends and we can catch up sometimes. This was specific for me in the first 2 courses, but actually in other courses also throughout the LEAD course, I met some incredible people that indeed I'm just now really friends with. So we just created genuine connections through the LEAD program.
Yeah, and to add to that, so through LEAD, almost every class you have a group that you're a member of, and so you have that organic interaction where you're coaching each other throughout the coursework, and that's been really beneficial to maintaining relationships. And what we found is for folks that we started to get really close through like a class or 2. Throughout the program, we ended up trying to, if we were taking the same class, hey, let's get in the same group together, and you're able to start to organize and create those groups. More so, you get to meet in person if you go to the Me to We event, which they hold annually, which is for current and alumni LEAD participants. And that was an area where I was extremely uncomfortable. I'm going to fly to California and I'm going to meet a bunch of people in person that I have not met before, but end up forging some fantastic relationships and friendships through that. And through the Power to Lead course, I actually still have a monthly meeting with 6 of my classmates where we are now coaching each other and continuing the practice of what we did in the course, which is, hey, what are we working on right now? How can we help each other out? Can this be a safe place where I can bounce some things off of you? And that's been extremely beneficial. So again, it's just about, there's plenty of opportunities to forge those relationships. It's all about what you do with them. But it's great to have that ability to engage in such a diverse crowd.
The amazing thing is everyone is there for almost the same thing, right? So it's not like you're going for a conference and you have to put on your networking hat or something like that. Everyone is going to be reaching out to you as well, trying to get to know you. So it's, as Zane said, it's a safe place. In fact, every time I'm traveling to anywhere, I reach out to the group and say, hey, who is around here? Who lives here from the community, to see them and speak to them. So it's a safe place and everyone is there for practically the same thing.
Well, thanks to all of you. There are also a few questions in the chat. There were questions from Ulzan and Jason and a few others that are mentioning there are a lot of programs that one could choose to enroll in, and folks are doing their research to find which one is the right program for them. And the questions are essentially, what led you to Stanford and why LEAD? Can you all speak a bit to that?
Okay, I'll take this to start with. As I said before, I was a bit confused of what to do. I researched MBAs, I researched LEAD. I knew my time was limited as well. I wanted a school that had high profile. The faculty, the teachers, the lecturers, these were things I looked at first. I'll be very honest, I knew the prestige name of Stanford, and that was very important to me. But I also had to consider the time I could give, to doing this course. And I knew I could commit to it for a year. But as Francesca said, at the beginning, it was quite tough. But we all put together and it became easier as time went on. But I actually saw a video of someone comparing Stanford LEAD to the other courses. And that was one of the reasons that swayed me. As well as I had a friend I also attended LEAD program. I made a call. I found out more. I attended programs like this. And I saw that it fit where I was going whilst not leaving my current role. And it's something I could consistently apply. I'm not just going to school, sit down in a class and write and listen. I was practicing it alongside learning. And that was the most effective thing for me.
There's an ambulance in my place, so I hope you're hearing me right. But New York, so it's messy. But for me, it was something that I was looking for because I know that I have a disruptive soul in a working environment that is banking, which is one of the rigid places that you will find. And so when I went through the curriculum that LEAD provides, there's a lot of courses on how to manage innovation projects, how to change the direction of things within organizations according to how you would like it to go. and how to really be a leader for a purpose that is not just money for the sake of money, but it's money, at least in my view, for the sake of having a positive impact on society and the environment. And I think Stanford in general embraces all the values that are core to me, to my own values, to really just generate positive spillover effects to society and the environment. That's why I'm in sustainable finance. And this course was really tailored for disruptors, for people that are not accepting the status quo, that really want to improve, and not only for themselves, for their own growth mindset, but also for their own organizations and for future organizations that they work for. So that was compared to also other MBAs, because I also looked just like Demi for MBAs and other courses, but they have more standard curriculum for just knowledge on finance that I didn't necessarily need. So I was really looking forward to be a little bit more in a disruptive mode.
Yeah, and just to add on as well, so took the same course of action that Francesca and Dami took, looked for EMBAs. I have 3 kids, and at me traveling every other weekend or once a month was out of the cards. So I did look for something that could ground me a bit. Also, I had friends that had already gotten their MBAs and conversed with them beforehand, during, and after. And I think for me, the experience at LEAD was the right one for me at the time in my career as well, because it focused more on the practical skills that I wanted to work on. Francesca kind of said it, the MBA is going to be more academic, and not to say that LEAD isn't academic, but it is more practical in nature. Hey, we're going to go teach you this. You're going to go do this right now in your work. Come back and tell us how that went for you. And you've got those course facilitators and coaches along the way. So for me, it was a bit more of an intimate and accelerated learning model that I appreciated and saw a lot of growth from.
Thank you all for sharing. There are also a couple of people in the chat that are mentioning, online programs typically come with a negative stigma or stereotype attached to them about the learning being not as deep or not as impactful. There are also some folks that just prefer learning in person. Did any of you have that topic for consideration as you were thinking about the program? And can you share a bit about your experience of how this program compares to the traditional learning environment?
Yeah, so I think we've kind of talked on the traditional versus LEAD a little bit in our previous answers. No one, at least to me, has said any sort of negativity about, oh, you went to Stanford, but you went online, right? I do get a lot of questions about my time at Stanford and the fact that I went through a year-long executive leadership course. That's come up with my leaders here at work, as well as just folks that I network with. But I think that stigma has eroded significantly. Of the other executives that I work with, not only internally at Microsoft, but with some of our partners as well, they're in other schools' CTO programs, other schools' CIO programs, things like that. It's a norm when you're at this stage, I think, in your career, that you're busy, you're an executive or you're a budding executive. You don't have time to go sit necessarily in the classroom multiple times a week, but you can do it in your off hours when you're traveling. So I think online courses have become the norm for this stage in your career, at least from my experience so far and my peers.
And I was actually worried sometimes before starting LEAD that this would have been a little bit of a situation where I put everything that I have into the courses and classes, but there are also other people that maybe do not, and they still pass and they take the credit for that. That didn't happen, and that's because the workload is pretty significant, and the deadlines are really every week or almost every week or twice a week. And you really have to deliver. And if you don't deliver, then you're not going to pass the course. And that's the experience that at least I and the people that I had as colleagues that we shared. So I would say maybe if you have those concerns, that's absolutely not the experience that I had. Although I do understand why you would have that concern. Also in working environments, you have people that work and others that don't, right? But it was not my impression that this is allowed in LEAD.
Yeah, and if I could jump in just real quick on that, this isn't a course that you can just breeze through and pass without participation. There was a specific moment. I was traveling for work and I did not put the effort into an assignment that I should have. I submitted it and the course facilitator did send it back and said, you're going to redo this assignment because this isn't the quality that it needs to be. So you will work, you are going to be forced to learn. And honestly, I think that's a good thing. You're held accountable throughout the course and so are all your peers. So just something to consider.
So I was going to say the same thing. And it was a case of I was thinking if I start the online course, I wasn't going to be as engaged, like, in front of me, like I'm going to be distracted with work. I wouldn't have enough time for it. I tell you, it became like the forefront for it. And again, talking about doing courses online, it's not a problem anymore. People work from home. People do that. So I didn't even hear that in my community at all. So it's a norm right now. And again, I would say this, for example, Stanford has a avatar. You walk on the campus. It was so engaging. There was so technology was used and it was so engaging with assignments. And I was even saying it's like Stanford became my job and my job became Stanford. You swapped. So you will be really engaged and you would not feel like it's an online course, to be honest.
Thank you all for sharing about that. I know that a couple of you spoke about sort of the time commitment required, the rigor of the courses and that response. And there were a couple of questions in the chat from Valeria, Luciana, and a few others that are curious about that time commitment. How much time you spent on the program regularly and how you balanced that with sort of everything else that you have going on. Can you all share maybe about your experience and also some tips and advice for the folks that may pursue this program soon?
So for time management, I at first, because it's based in the States and I'm over in Nigeria, my first fear was, how would this work? But good thing that Stanford had different time zones, time for meets. So that solved that issue. So I didn't have to attend a time zone that didn't thoroughly suit me. In terms of meeting your groups and the time itself, to be honest, that's the minimum time that was stated, depending on what you want to get out of the course. And especially if it's a course or a module that interests you a lot, I found out I spent a lot more time willingly trying to do that. If I want to get to know a lot more people, again, I spent more time trying to get to know these people, because you have to understand that in the course, in an online course, you're not in a class having a discussion with one person or two. Although there are ways in which we do that by having breakout sessions and everything. If I want to get to know Francesca right now, I would find a way to get to know her. That's also time spent out of that. But at the end of the day, because you do things with work itself, right? You're doing things that you're implementing with work. It's kind of infused with what you're doing. So there were some times I realized that I was doing my Stanford work, but whilst working. So it didn't really feel like I was doing anything like out of the ordinary. So aside from the first semester, to be honest, because that was like the toughest, trying to adjust and understand how to go around it. To be honest, it's pretty engaging, and it's how much you want to get out of it that you put in.
Yeah, and I think again with that time commitment, because it does directly relate to your day-to-day, or at least it did for me. I took a strategy course where, on a weekly basis, we're talking about strategy, doing something. The assignment would be reflecting on strategy that you've done before, incorporating things like that. So you're able to basically leverage your experience and then reference that in your work. So I think that helps. To Dami's point, it is the amount of time you put in, you'll get what you get out, or you get what you put into it. Should say that. The time commitment was significant though. It's self-paced learning. You do need to schedule and work ahead to make sure you're meeting with your classmates, because it's not like during my undergrad, you had to do a post and then 2 posts to other students and you move on. No, this is hey, you can engage in forums asynchronously, but you're going to engage synchronously with your classmates and you're going to do things. So you schedule that. But one of the things the course does extremely well is that they outline everything that's needed. They outline when it's due, and they do that well ahead of time. So you can schedule, a couple of weeks out, and when you're busy traveling, doing those things, that was a lifesaver for me to go ahead and schedule 2 to 3 weeks out.
Maybe to add, I did have a very good support system, because knowing ahead how much time you need to invest in the courses, plus on top of it, having a very demanding job and working late hours also for my normal job, it was an effort. I joke around it because, simply put, I loved it, right? But for 1 year, I basically didn't have a life, right? So when people were having holidays, I was taking that time to just relax 1 second and study more in that period, compared to my colleagues that were like, oh, there's a little bit less heavy load work, let's enjoy that time. And I was like, yeah, okay, good to know, and I'll study more in that period. Amazing partner that cooked for me meals when I had late assignments for the same day. And yes, you do need to schedule a little bit around it. It was worth it though. I even moved to New York for the short-term assignment that I was talking about earlier during LEAD, and I still completed in 1 year. Looking back, I was a little bit crazy doing that, right? So I could have taken maybe 1 course less and expanded a little bit of time for which I finished, but I was like, okay, no, I'll just be my own self and just do things as I usually do them, with my full heart, and just finish. But you can phase yourself a little bit more than me if you are less crazy, but it is quite a commitment. So yeah, do arrange yourself properly.
Yeah, I'm sure that the folks on this call appreciate sort of the very transparent advice and tips that you all gave. So thank you for that. And perhaps for our last question, and then once we take this, I'll ask our ambassadors for any closing thoughts that you might have for the group. There are a few folks that have asked about other courses that are available in LEAD. In today's webinar, we learned quite a bit about the Building Power to Lead course. And I'll put a link in the chat for folks to check out the full set of LEAD courses that are offered in the program. There are over 20 there that you can check out that link for once we wrap up this discussion. But for the ambassadors, can you speak a bit about what other courses you took and any that stood out to you that you would recommend for folks?
I can go ahead. The course that I took in the last period was creating a life of purpose. And that was just incredible to finish LEAD with that course, because after you take finance, critical analytical skills, setups, power, and all these courses, and then I ended with creating a life of purpose, where I really just completely understood myself better and what I want to achieve in life, not just for the next 1 to 3 years, not just for 10 years, but until I'm dead. And that is a very, very powerful course. There's an exercise that you do at the end of it for which you have to write your own obituary. That stays with me on the side of my bed table, and it's so inspiring. So that really is one that stood out for me.
It's a hard question because there are a lot of great courses, and I learned a lot from them. A couple of standouts for me were strategic leadership. It was coming up with the strategic frameworks that are required to execute. So many times I think people come up with vision, but they don't necessarily put a strategy in place. And can you still hear me? I lost my mic here. Okay. Communicating with impact is another one. I think as a leader, your ability to communicate is going to predicate your success. So that was another great class you got a lot of practice on. And then storytelling was another one, which is I come from a military background where you come up, you tell the facts, you leave, and the corporate structure that works to a point. But your ability to tell a story, especially with customer engagements, was an area that was a weak spot for me. And so I really appreciated that.
For me, it was quite tough. I've been thinking because everything was very impactful. But one of the ones that really stood out for me was Power Story, as Zane said. So it brought everything together for me. It was a case of, you might know everything, you might do everything, but if you can't communicate it to the right audience in the right way that it can have the impact, then it's pointless. The ability to get you interested, for someone like me that I'm very, very short attention span. So imagine I'm speaking to someone like me as well. How do you get their interest to ensure you get the results out of it? So Power's story was very effective for me, which brings me to the second one, which was persuasion. Persuasion was something that was very, very impactful, especially at the time when I was working. I had many projects coming on. It was things I could, implement, and I saw results immediately. So out of the numerous modules, those are the two as well that stood out for me. Thank you.
Great recommendations. And I hope everybody takes a moment to go explore the full set of courses. There are, like Zane said, some really great ones in there. Well, it is almost time to wrap up this session. And so I would love to close with just quick closing thoughts from the ambassadors. What would you like to share and leave this audience with as they think about whether LEAD is right for them? And Francesca, we'll start with you.
Brace for impact if you decide to do this course. It's really a journey that is super impactful in only positive ways. Personally, I got out of my own way. I would never be in the position that I'm in right now, having the influence that I have right now in the financial industry, if I wouldn't have taken it, and I've connected to amazing people. So I cannot think of anything negative to say. So good luck to you through your applications.
Thank you, Francesca. And Dami, go ahead.
Just one sentence. Personal transformation is very possible, and you get that through Stanford LEAD.
Great. Thank you. And Zane, please go ahead.
Yeah, one of the main things I grappled with was it going to be worth the investment? Not only the monetary value, but the time commitment. Because I was also self-funded for LEAD. And now that I've graduated, I've taken it, I can look back on it. One of the things I can say is, for me, it was absolutely worth that investment. And I actually wish I could spend more time and kind of go back. And there's some areas where I wish I would have kept those notes or took better notes, because this is germane to what I'm doing at work today. So for me, the value that you get from the program is invaluable.
Well, I really appreciate the time, the insights, the stories that all of you shared with us today. Thank you so much. And thank you to everybody who joined, the great questions and all of your engagement over the time that we've had together here. Again, applications are now open for the next cohort of LEAD that will start the program in March. And we do hope that you'll apply, that we'll have a chance to learn a bit more about you as we receive your applications for the program. That application deadline is coming up in exactly 2 weeks from today, February 5. So you have plenty of time to get your materials in. And if you have any questions as you move through the application process, you're welcome to reach out to our team, and we would be more than happy to answer your questions and support you along the way. So we hope to stay in touch with you, and we do hope that we'll have the opportunity to welcome you to LEAD and the GSB community in March. Until then, thank you again for joining this session. I hope everyone enjoys the rest of your day, and take good care until next time. Bye, everybody.